Candidates Forum for District 2, Uniting Our Voice, Our Vote, and Our Power. My name is Angela Herlock, and I'm the Executive Director for Foreclosure Associates, and I will be one of your co-facilitators for tonight's event.
Hello, my name is Amalia Nieto-Gomez, and I'm the Executive Director for the Alliance of the Southeast and co-coordinator for the Coalition for Southward CBA, and I will be co-facilitating with Angela tonight. Si ocupan traducción en español, por favor, vayan este lado para la traducción.
I would like to introduce Pastor Lassenby, the pastor of Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, who is our host this evening.
Good evening once again, everyone. My name is Corbin Lassenby, pastor of Pilgrim Baptist Church of South Chicago. The members of Pilgrim Baptist Church is excited to host this candidate forum, as we always do, because we believe in community. It is important that we hear the candidates and we hear their platform, also answer our questions that are necessary. United Our Voices is an alliance of organizations of Chicago's Southeast Side that have come together to address diverse issues in our community. And some of our organizations presently do work in the south suburbs of Chicago. This event is sponsored by the following community institutions: the Alliance of the Southeast, CTU, United Workers Center, Claration and Associates, the Coalition of the South Works CBA, Metropolitan Family Services of South Chicago, Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church of South Chicago, and the Southeast Environmental Task Force. Tonight, we have a broad representation of Latino, African American, and white voters who have come from various parts of the 13th Senate District and also the 2nd Congressional District to listen to the candidates, speak on issues that directly impact us. We hope that when we ask our questions, that we are mindful that they are human and that we're not at an attack event tonight, but we are at an informational gathering tonight. If you're in need of any of our washrooms, they're downstairs. Also, any vending machines, anything that you need, we are here and open. We thank you for being a part of Pilgrim Baptist Church tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. We have a series of ground rules for tonight. Here are the ground rules for the candidates and for everyone else here. For those of you who are here for the State Senate Forum, this is just a reminder. So, rules for the candidate. Please respect our timekeeper, Alan Linder, will be our timekeeper. Please, thank you, he's already stood up. When you get near the end of your time, he will hold up a flyer, what time is remaining. Do not go over your time or the microphone will be turned off. Respect the other candidate. No cheering and no insults. Remember, we are in a church, so no lying. No partisan applause or yelling from your volunteers. And no electioneering inside the church. So we ask that you take off any buttons or any kind of paraphernalia. Rules for the audience. Everyone, please turn off your cell phones. Hold your applause till the end of the event. Respect everyone present. No partisan applause or yelling. No campaign buttons, t-shirts, or literature to be passed out inside the building. And the bathrooms are downstairs on your right at the bottom of the stairs should you need them.
We would like to welcome both of our candidates, Marcus Lewis and Teresa Rayborn. Robin Kelly was invited, but declined. She was double booked. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes to answer each question after it's read. The questions being asked were put together by the organization sponsoring the event, which reflects the communities that they represent.
For the latter part of the event, questions will be taken from the audience. You have received an index card to write down a question if you have one. The guidelines for the questions are, questions will be read for both candidates to answer. We will only read questions that are not repetitive and nonpartisan. We will not read questions that have personal attacks. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to the questions from the audience so that we can hear the responses to more questions. Ushers, please start collecting the cards.
Now we'll read the first question on CRA. So I'd like to introduce Jasmine Gunn from Claration Associates.
Hi everyone, I'm actually the usher that collects the questions as well, so when I get off of here, if you have any questions, Wave me down. Okay. So currently, the CRA, which is the Community Reinvestment Act, is slated to be revised. Current suggested revisions include increasing the requirements of banks to abort investments, moving to a pass-fail nature, and away from comparative scoring, and judging dollars invested as a whole versus through a lens of type and recipients. These measures could lead to banks receiving the same type of credit for building a $30 million Megatron at a stadium, and it would be the same as providing $100,000 loans to home buyers and businesses in undervalued neighborhoods. As the Southeast side is still fighting to recover from the foreclosure crisis, utilizing various investment measures in this area that still deals with a lot of disinvestments, how will you fight to maintain the integrity of the CRA so that banks do not skirt their responsibility towards rebuilding disinvested neighborhoods?
Well, I take that question. Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcus Lewis. I'm running for Democratic nomination for Congress. I'm to be honest with you, I have not been abreast of the circumstances, but I do know that this being the 10th ward needs massive investment. And I know that the banks have been very slowful about loaning to anyone that is not of the elite or already well connected. They do not have an interest in helping the average citizens in any neighborhood, not just this one, but any neighborhood, because they want to what they call relocate the average citizen that does not make $150,000 to $200,000 a year annually to be moved out of the city entirely. Black people and the Latins, period. They want us out. That being said, I, as a congressman who wants to help the average person, because that's who I am, I'm a retired postal worker, I want to bring the perspective of an average citizen to the House of Representatives so that you can hear the voices that you have, because that will be the voice that I will be bringing.
Teresa Rayburn?
Okay. Is it on? Hello? Can you hear it?
Can you share?
Hello? Okay, better. When you talk about the foreclosure crisis and everything that we have faced in this country, actually my husband and I were one of the victims of that. We happened to buy a house in 2008, and very shortly our home started dropping in value. And when we actually bought it from one of those, it was from a land bank that was investing and trying to revitalize the district or the area that we were living in. And so we were able to get it on like a rent-to-own basis, and we were supposed to have so many years to transfer it to a regular mortgage. When we tried to do that, everything was fine, except they couldn't give us the full amount that we needed because the value had significantly dropped. Basically, we bought a house and it lost about 25% of its value in 2 years. So we were one of those ones that fell victim to all of that. And when it comes to families trying to get on their feet or trying to heal from that, we definitely do need to put that reinvestment back into our districts and into our families. It's all about families, and especially for children, they need stable homes. So I really do support having more reinvestment, and I will work on that from the vantage point in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. CRA is very important to ensure investments and access to good loans in our communities. Our next question is on immigration with Hilda Maldonado.
Durante el año pasado, notamos que el Departamento de Inmigración y Aduanas detuvo a más de 50,000 personas injustamente, y su presupuesto ha crecido por millones de dólares. Además, han violado los derechos humanos de inmigrantes al separar familias en la frontera. Es aceptable pedir el apoyo de la comunidad latina sin hacer un compromiso para disminuir o eliminar los fondos federales de ASE. Luchamos por comunidades, no por cárceles. los presupuestos masivos del Departamento de Inmigración y cómo piensa luchar en contra de las pólizas de inmigración que son completamente inhumanas.
I'm going to translate. In the past fiscal year, we've seen over 50,000 people unjustly detained daily by Immigration and Customs Informants, otherwise known as ICE. And the budgets of immigration enforcement grow by the billions. Also, ICE has violated the human rights of immigrants by separating families at the border. It is unacceptable to claim support for immigrant communities without voting to defund hate. We fight for communities, not cages. How will you address the already inflated budgets for ICE and CBP and the effects of these unjust and inhumane immigration laws?
We're going to start with Teresa.
Okay, well, I know immigration is a very hot topic right now. When it comes to immigration, we do have laws in place that previous Congresses have passed, and we do need to make sure that those laws are being upheld. Now, when we do have someone, regardless of whether it's an American citizen or an immigrant who's here legally or an illegal immigrant, when they do commit a crime, we do need to make sure that they are going through the system. But if they are here illegally, then their crimes are just adding to the crimes we already have. And we have plenty of crime right here in Chicago. So when there is an ICE detainer to deport someone like that, who already has that, then yes, that needs to be done. But as far as just going and picking up people off the street, I do not support that. What I do have on my website is actually a plan to give illegal immigrants a pathway to citizenship. It is not amnesty. It is a way to bring them into the fold. If there are situations where people are being just rounded up without having committed a crime, I would really like to know those specific situations so that I can address those. I'm sorry?
It happened this morning and last week as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I would like to be able to look at those individual cases to see what's going on with that, to make sure that we are not separating innocent people who are only here illegally. Thank you.
Marcus.
Am I hearing right that there was a roundup this morning?
Yes.
And how many were there?
It was 2 passengers in the car. One of them was the one that was detained.
And was it in this area, in this neighborhood?
It was an 83rd and commercial.
83rd Commercial. Thank you very much for telling me that. I'm from the Dream Act. And even to me, the Dream Act doesn't go far enough. I'm not for mass roundup and exportation of individuals that have found themselves to be here illegally. There is a process that they must go through because they're here for a reason. They're here because they want to have a different way of life. That is absolutely for sure. Whatever's going on in Latin America, Mexico, Honduras, what causes them to be here, they want a better life for themselves. Now there is a process. I believe that the DREAM Act was a modicum for that bridge for a person to be able to be here on a more permanent basis simply because they were brought here as children. And they shouldn't be exported because they really have no other home. Now, for those that cross the border, I am for the holding to the laws that we have to. That is what we are for. That is why we are hired. There must be, I'm against violation of immigration laws, but I do believe that there's a process and there should be some social aspect to be extended to them because they're here for a reason, and we know it's mostly economical.
Just a quick note, future reference. No human beings are illegal, and illegal immigrants is a derogatory term. Nowadays we use undocumented immigrants.
Thank you.
May I, before she leaves, and I'm not here because I'm in the church, I believe in God, and I'm a minister myself. I am not here to besmirch anyone. When I say illegal, it's just as if you have a driver's license.
Time's up. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The ushers are collecting the index cards with questions from the audience for the candidates. If you would like to submit a question, please write it down and give the index cards to one of the ushers. Now we will have a question about healthy developments.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Marie Collins Wright. Wright. I am the Vice President of Jeffrey Manor Community Revitalization Council and member of the Coalition for South Fork CBA. I have been a resident in South Chicago for about 50 years. The southeast side of Chicago is continuing to suffer from the burden of toxic industries, dirt, and dust. Most recently, the relocation of General Iron and Finkel Steel from the Lincoln Yards. Finkel Steel is the #1 air polluter in Cook County. They're getting rid of all of the dirty business of the North River and moving it in our neighborhood. Now the expansion of the confined disposal facility, also known as the toxic landfill, is threatening our water safety, all of them, everyone who drinks water. They are taking toxic dirt from the river and storing it at the mouths of the Calumet River and Lake Michigan. Because of the rising water in the lake and the record waves we've experienced, it has compromised the safety and stability of the confined disposal facility, which is only separated from our drinking water by a dirt wall. Now the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers wants to store even more in the confined disposal facility. We want to know how you are going to prevent a future disaster. We also don't want the U.S. Army of Engineers to move it to someplace else in our community. How are you going to protect our drinking water and protect our community from any more toxic developments or businesses?
Marcus Lewis.
First of all, the contamination of this area has been absolutely grotesque. From the steel mill that wasn't cleaned up properly to the Finkel that is moving that here, the Lincoln Yards project is moving it here in this area. This area has been a historic dumping ground for decades. What I would like to do as your representative, I will bring to the issue on the floor and try to get my colleagues to say that this area has had enough. And it cannot take any more, because in order for it to be revitalized and be a place that is hospitable to new investment, it can't be looked upon and, oh, that's a garbage dump. We can't go there. But this, as I was driving up South Shore Drive, this is absolutely beautiful. All the plans that they have, the Marianos that were supposed to come here, and the new city that was supposed to be developed, to have over 140,000 new homes. Not going to happen if they make this a garbage dump. And that's why they want us removed. I said us. I live in Madison. I grew up in Chatham. They want us removed from this area, and then they will be cleaning it up. I will be on the forefront to ensure that the detestable garbage is not brought here.
Teresa Rayburn.
Okay, one of the reasons why I am actually running for Congress is because I have turned on the news and gone around the district through year after year, and I am just sick and tired of our district being used, abused, taken advantage of, and ignored. We haven't had the investment in our district that we need, and we need someone who's going to fight for that on the House floor in Washington. And I am determined that we are going to get the money and we are going to get it right here for this district. We actually have many areas throughout the district that are suffering with water contamination issues, and I want to make sure that every person in my district has clean, fresh water to drink and don't have toxins in the air. I saw the thing right out there talking about asthma. I have asthma. I have a daughter who has asthma. This is an issue for my family. And it's an issue that I am very passionate about. I am determined to get the funds that we need to make sure that every person is able to live a healthy, productive life. No parent should have to sit there and watch their child not be able to breathe. Breathing is the most key component of life. And I know exactly what it's like when you can't. I've been there.
Thank you. We need healthy developments in our communities that benefit residents. Now we have a question on education.
past 4 years, President Trump has proposed eliminating the 21st Century Community Learning Centers, which funds local and after-school and summer learning programs in all 50 states and U.S. territories. A loss of these funds would devastate 1.7 million children and their families, who stand to lose access to after-school as a result. There is a bipartisan proposal that includes a $28 million increase. In response to this, the administration proposed zeroing out 21st Century Community Learning Centers and consolidating this with 30 other educational programs into a new elementary and secondary education for disadvantaged block grant. This would result in the elimination of all targeted after-school and summer learning funding, overall drastically lowering elementary and secondary education funding by $5 billion. What is your stance on after-school programming, and how would you address this issue if elected?
Okay, well, education is actually one of my biggest issues. I personally am a homeschooling mom, and I am also part of that latchkey generation. My mom was a divorced mom when I was 18 months old, and she did not get remarried until I was 11, so I know what it's like and how important after-school programs are. But I ask very interesting questions. I want to totally take a look at our entire education system, and I actually have a detailed plan on my website, and it actually eliminates the question of after-school programs because it makes it more flexible. If you have a single mom who is working an afternoon job, why does she have to bring her? I actually asked the question, why do we have to educate every child in America between the hours of 8 a.m. and 3 p.m.? Why can't we have more flexibility with that? I actually make it possible and save money at the same time. With my Educating for Success plan, Chicago Public Schools alone would save almost $2 billion a year. That's money that we can actually put into more programs too. And this would make it possible for kids being there even later in the day, maybe from 10 to 5 or something like that. So that would actually eliminate the need for these after-school programs, and we could actually incorporate those into part of the school day so they can spend more time with their parents.
Education is one that every family wants and aspires their children to have the best education possible. I'm not here, so-called, to save money. I'm here to bring in the resources that we're not getting. I want you, as an educator, to have all the resources necessary to give that child in that classroom the best opportunity to face this world that we are in right now. Because I'm tired of tax cuts. I'm tired of cutting because they don't put it toward those they're supposed to benefit. You see, I know that there is a plan to, like they removed 54 schools, a third of those within the 2nd Congressional District. The current congressperson did nothing, said nothing. Because they're fine. That person was placed here as a seat holder. I, on the other hand, am not a politician. I'm a citizen legislator. So when I hear the things that I'm hearing, all I want to do is give the resources that you're not getting. I want you to have everything that you should have had 10 and 20 years ago. And I will work hard in Congress to bring that about. What you do with the money is up to the state and local governments. But outside of that, I want you to have everything that we have been denied.
Actually, can I make one comment about the school closings? It's only targeting.
Sorry, thank you though. Education, of course, is very important to all of us, and we thank you for your comments. At this point in time, we're going to read some of the questions that came from you. Ushers have collected cards, and they will continue to collect cards if you have them. Just a reminder about the guidelines that we follow for the questions. Respect everyone present. Questions will be read for both candidates to answer. We will only read questions that are not repetitive and nonpartisan, and we will not read questions that have personal attacks. Please note that you have 1 minute to respond, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. We will alternate who's first for each of those questions. Our first question is... Our first question is, would you be in favor of taxing pensions?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next question is, billions of dollars for our community are allocated to the city and state and county through the census. What are you doing, or what have you done to ensure that our community is counted, especially after the mistreatment of Latinos by the citizens' question?
Okay, well, I think every person needs to be counted because we do need to know how many people are in our communities. So I encourage everyone to answer your census and send that in. It is my understanding that the citizenship question is not mandatory. Am I correct?
Not there.
It's not even there, okay. So that's a non-issue right now. I do encourage everyone to answer that because our community, each community is allocated funds based on the size of our population. So we really need to make sure that everyone is answering that fully. And from what I understand, they're still looking for a lot of people to help out with that. So if you're looking for a job, that's a really good place to look for a job that pays pretty decent, actually. So thank you. I very much support that.
Obviously, I want everyone to participate in the census. That's absolutely crucial for us to get the type of dollars that are deserving. We don't want to be undercounted on any circumstances. And I'm asking people that they not be fearful in any way. I understand there's this thing called ASE that's out there, especially in this community. It's most unfortunate that we have a government that wants to basically terrorize one segment of society. I still believe that you still should be counted, and everyone should participate. And I know the temporary job is $29 an hour, which is quite a good sum. There's a lot of perils when you go into someone's home to count someone. But I ask everyone to please participate.
Thank you. The last proposed developer for the Southwork site, the Barcelona Group / Emerald Housing, backed out of purchasing the land when toxins were found during their environmental review. They signed a non-disclosure agreement on the findings. Residents have a right to know what toxins they found, since these toxins could be impacting our health. This is where it's very critical about the question we're going to ask you. What can you do to make this info public?
Right now, all I can do is advocate and expose. I need the seat to be helpful to you and to this community and to the 2nd Congressional District at large. I would like not to change the subject, but I would like to tell you Pembroke is the poorest county in the state, if not the country. And they are drinking poison water. They do not have gas line. They have to use firewood and propane gas just to heat their homes. And many other government and administrations have allowed them to languish. And I'm asking that you all vote for Marcus Lewis, because I am a common man who has a determination to help this community.
Just a reminder, we cannot have any electioneering in this location. All right.
Go ahead. Oh. Okay, actually Pembroke is not too far from my hometown where I was born. And I'm glad you brought that up because it is also suffering from the same type of things. I actually have someone that is working with me and has endorsed me, who works for actually the longest running African American owned newspaper in Illinois, from what I understand. And he's been filing a lot of FOIA requests. So if you could possibly give me that information so that we can get those FOIA requests, and then we can put that out and let everyone know what the status is on those toxins, because they have a right to know. Everyone does. Every mother, father, and child has a right to know what is going on with their groundwater and also with their air. So any toxins that were found, I want to know about it, and I want to know about it now.
All right, so we have a couple of questions on education. How will you ensure that corporations start supporting local schools in the area? And you can answer this one with it or separately, but what will you do for schools to support equipment, funding, and technology?
First of all, I would like to put forth legislation that will require them in the legislation that they must fund, or if they want to be of some assistance, because I do not really want to depend on corporate America. The federal government is whom we pay taxes to, and it is the federal government that must fund these communities and fund these schools properly. Without that, we are looking for them to give us their benevolence, and you know if they're not required, they're not going to do it. And so they'll always undermine us. They always say, well, grease our hand. Well, our hand has to have something for it too. No, you've already had your largesse. You've had your tax cuts. You've had all the trappings that this country can offer. And the people have basically been left to fend for themselves. Enough of the fend for themselves. The federal government is whom should be leading the way.
I kind of have a question. Are you talking about like elementary, high school, or all the way across the board?
It didn't say, so I would say all.
Okay. Well, we definitely need for our businesses to be involved. One thing that I remember from many years ago when I was in high school is that we had something called Career Center, where we could take part of our high school day and go and learn a trade. And I think that is very instrumental. I think many businesses could actually utilize that. They can help to train the next generation in many of those fields. And I would like to partner with that to get our young men and women into not just training them for college, because we don't need college for every field. We need people to be skilled in a lot of different professions. Even just being a beautician takes a lot of training. And that was one of the things that they had back then. So I really do want to make sure that we are training our children for these fields where they could actually make a really decent salary without the high cost of college. And as far as those school closings that was mentioned earlier, I'm sorry to tell you, but it is only targeting our minority communities, and I find that disgraceful.
Thank you. We are entering a healthcare crisis. Many working people do not have health care or sick benefits. This is a two-part question. Do you support Medicare for all? And do you have a plan to extend health care to the non-insured? We're going to start with Teresa.
That's another policy that I actually have written and published on my website that's very extensive, and it's called the Freedom Health Bill. Medicare for all, I've looked at it, I've crunched the numbers every which way, and the only way we can afford it is to not pay for any other government programs that we have. So food stamps and Social Security and all of that stuff would go away, or we would have to triple taxes. So financially, it's just not feasible. My healthcare plan would actually reduce the cost. I know a lot of people talk about reducing the cost of prescription drugs. I think we need to reduce the cost of all medical products and services so it is actually affordable. And my plan would actually provide better care for Medicaid recipients while saving money. And I know that sounds a little funny, you have to look at the policy, but it also ensures that Medicare will be around for at least 100 more years.
Thank you, Marcus.
I'm for Medicare for all, period. Why? Because Medicare for all covers everyone, in spite of who you are or what community you come from. Obamacare only covers 20 million people. That's it, and most people cannot afford it, okay? So the tax cuts that were given to the top 1/10 of 1%, who did not need it, all they did was suck out the resources from the masses of the people. That's us. There is more than enough money to pay for everything that we have and everything that we desire. You understand? That's what the federal government is for. It is the spender of last resort. That's why we have a thing called Social Security. That's why we had a man named Franklin Delano Roosevelt. I am an FDR Democrat. I am not an Obama Democrat. I'm an FDR Democrat. I understand the power that the federal government can do for the masses of the people.
We have a question from one of our youth. How are you going to keep the people safe on the streets? Starting with Teresa.
Well, first of all, in the city of Chicago, we have a 12.5% homicide clearance rate. That means only 1 out of 8. That's unheard of. I mean, that cannot be sustained, period. We need to make sure that we are investigating those crimes and that when those cases are brought to the Cook County State's Attorney, because we're in Cook County, that these cases are being prosecuted and adjudicated so that, okay, if the person that's caught is innocent, that person is free and released back into the community. But if that person is guilty, they need to go to prison. But I also have a plan that works on rehabilitating people so that when they do eventually get out of prison, they'll come back to our communities as a better person, not as a smarter criminal, but as a better person. And I actually think since we have a backlog of cases, I would get the federal funds to make sure that we have the resources to handle those backlogs.
Thank you.
As far as crime in our community, it is mainly economic. And there's another issue. There is an invisible hand that comes in a community like ours to, divide it against itself. I am of the mindset that a person has the opportunity to be safe in their community and to have the access to a firearm. But there is a thing called the Second Amendment where it says that it must be well regulated. And that's the problem. I do not believe in people walking around having firearms, whether they're concealed or even in their homes, that they do not understand that it must be regulated. You just can't go around shooting someone just to defend yourself. Then sometimes you must retreat, and only in the last resort. But our community is under attack because it doesn't have resources.
Thank you. This will be our last question. We are living in a time that makes it clear that our current economic system is driving us towards dangerous climate change. The Green New Deal is a proposal that will challenge both climate change and economic inequality by providing jobs, creating sustainable public works for a new sustainable economy. Here in South Chicago, we could use the Green New Deal to develop brownfields in an actually sustainable and community-controlled way. Do you support the Green New Deal? We'll start with Marcus.
Yes, I do support the Green New Deal, but once again, truth must come into this conversation. What is happening with our climate is man-made, completely. The reason why we have the climate that it fluctuates is because there's a thing called the HARP machine. And there's an array of these machines, and I think there are about 3 or 4 of them across the globe. And they're being used against us. They create the tsunamis, the earthquakes, the hurricanes. This is all man-made to get certain segments out or to break up certain communities and countries and cities. I'm firmly against the sabotage of our environment because it's all man-made and man-generated.
Okay, well, first of all, depending on what figures you look at, the Green New Deal would cost anywhere from $50 trillion to $90 trillion over the 10 years. So that is 5 to 9 trillion. We only bring in about 4 trillion a year. So I'm not sure how we can make up that difference without raising taxes significantly. Now, I definitely care about the environment, as, like I said earlier, someone with asthma, and I definitely want all the toxins taken care of. But one thing that gets lost in this whole talk about things is when we talk about retrofitting buildings. I don't know about you, but my family does not have the money to make our house to fit the Green New Deal. We just don't have that money sitting around, and I would bet most of you don't either. So it's kind of pushing a little bit more. For a millionaire or a billionaire, it's nothing for them to retrofit their buildings. But for us, that's almost impossible.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis and Ms. Rayborn. These are issues of concern to all of us, and we really appreciate your responses. We have one more question to ask you. So, as a part of uniting our voice, our vote, our power, we would like you to respond to this question as yes or no. If you are elected as state senator, Teresa Raybourn.
No, congressman.
Oh, sorry, Congress. Thank you. As Congresswoman, will you meet with the community organizations that organize this event within the first 60 days of your administration? Yes or no?
Actually, I would like to meet with them within the first 10 to 15 days after the election.
So that's a yes.
That's definitely a yes. I would really love to, because then we can work on initiatives so that the first day in office we can have policies to put in.
All right. And same question to you, Mr. Lewis. If you are elected congressman, will you meet with the community organizations organizing this event within the first 60 days of your administration?
Absolutely, because we need to hit the ground running. We're only there for 745 days. And so it is time that once you have new blood, new ideas, I want you to come right with me that we can get started right away.
Thank you. Now we're going to have give each candidate 1 minute for closing statements. In that closing statement, could you possibly say the 3 things that you hope to accomplish or initiate in your first year of office? We're going to start with Marcus Lewis.
First of all, thank you for the Alliance for Southeast for holding this forum. In the 2nd Congressional District, there's not a lot of forums that are going on because they just don't want to hear from the people that are viable. I want to have Medicare for all. That's the first thing. The second thing, I want free college for free public education in secondary and in college. I want all the student loan debts just simply be forgiven. They can't pay for them. They're just mortgages and millstones around our necks. And the third thing, I do want racial justice, because that is something that's been lacking from a standpoint to where we're constantly fighting for things that should have been ours by birth. So I'm asking you all to be engaged and be informed and be ready to vote now up until the 17th.
Okay, one of the primary reasons why I'm running is because I've watched this district being used, abused, and ignored for so long. And I've, just like many of you, have seen many politicians come and go and say that they're going to go to Washington and they're going to fix whatever. But they never tell us how. I mean, there are some people that now have some policies, but that's one thing that has always frustrated me. And actually, some people that came to my campaign and do assist me have told me to take my policies off my website, that I'm telling too much. But I don't. I have over 30 bills and solutions to tackle many of these issues, and I put it out there because I want you to know exactly what you're voting for, and to know that I'm ready to hit the ground running, so my time in Washington will be spent getting the support of my colleagues to get these bills passed and get us solutions. And I do ask that if you have any problems with my bills, please let me know so I can make modifications, because they're supposed to be our bills, not just mine. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your responses. We're going to have now we're going to hear from Curtis Thompson on upcoming town halls.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Curtis Thompson. I'm a long-time resident of South Shore, a member of Christ Bible Church and Impact Ministries, as well as a member of Southworks. And I'd like to ask everybody to give themselves a round of applause for being here this evening. And then representatives that are here to actually speak on their behalf and hear your thoughts and concerns. So I'm here to actually inform you of the town hall meetings, which everyone has a flyer. It's called a visioning session. The visioning session is important because what it does allows you the opportunity to share your views, your ideals, or what you want in your community. And then we put them in the capsule, shake them up, roll them out, and come up with some type of conformity that works for everyone. The next visioning session is going to be held April the 2nd And everyone has a flyer, so you'll be able to address it at your leisure. It's gonna be at the Quarry, which is 2423 East 75th Street. The time is gonna be 5:30, or the meeting starts at 6 to 7:30. So we'd appreciate you coming out, supporting the organization, share your ideas so we can have an impact in our communities that we both kind of share in. So that's my spiel. This is the handout. And we want to give Amalia a hand because she put this on. That's been participating. And I'm just going to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We're going to make the 10th, 7th, 8th ward a much better ward to live in with your help. And I'm not running for political office.
Just a quick update, the flyer has more information and there actually be two. So one's at the Quarry, which Curtis just mentioned, and then the other one is going to be April 30th at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church, which is just kitty corner to this church here. And now we will have hear from Jasmine Gunn on the Chicago Prize.
Hello again. Many of you guys are here for the first update, but just a quick summary again. South Chicago is one of 6 finalists for the Pritzker Troper Prize. That's $10 million grants. That goes to one South and West Side community. We're trying to do 9 projects all down 91st Street and 92nd Street. They were from housing, affordable housing, indoor recreation facilities, outdoor spaces as well. If you guys don't mind, on the way out, grabbing a walking tour map. You can walk, or if it's too cold, get in the car, but there's large art installations at each of the sites to kind of signify where each project will be.
And now we will hear from Pastor Lassenby about the census.
2020 census is important. Medicare is affected. Medicaid is affected. We have to have integrity when you hear about the census. It is important that you know that the facts. Then nobody's looking to send you anywhere. It's the facts. People need to be counted. The government knows more about you with your cell phone than they would ever know about you, about your census. Your census, again, as the commissioner said earlier, it's about roads, it's about libraries, it's about infrastructure. Everybody counts. When you have children in your house, it is important that we get the children counted because those are dollars that we get back to our community in order to restore our communities back to the luster that they were. Thank you.
We want to give a special acknowledgement to the DePaul Language Academy that is performing our translation today. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. And thank you to all that you have come out tonight.
So, Election Day is coming up. Election Day is March 17th. That's for the primary elections for both the two sets of candidates for State Senate and Congress, as well as President. Please note you can register to vote at all early voting sites. Any voter registering for the first time or filing a change of address or a change of name needs to show 2 forms of ID. Early voting registration has already begun. Please see the green handout for more information. You can also visit the Chicago Board of Elections website. Y si tienen equipo de interpretación, por favor regrese el equipo a la mesa de registración. Gracias. So if we could give one more thank you to our candidates who have come out tonight. And again, a thank you for our hosts and the sponsoring organizations. So with that, thank you everyone for coming. Please remember to vote. Your vote is your voice and have a say in what happens in our community. Please go and vote. Pastor Lassenby, did you have any final words?
Again, to everyone, thank you for coming out to Pilgrim Baptist Church. I want to thank my choir. Tonight is choir rehearsal, so they backed their choir rehearsal up for us to have this forum. And so we don't want to rush everybody out, but I want to be able to get them in so they can finish their choir rehearsal, so they can be prepared for Sunday morning. And again, thank you for coming to Pilgrim Baptist Church. We're always open to be able to be a blessing to the community. Thank you again.
Amen.